It's a different nerves. Because now I'm going back. I'm going back, what, 10 years now? I'm like going back there. Anyway. Okay.
Yeah, don't be.
Okay, all right. So we'll start, if that's okay with you. Okay. Welcome to Unscripted Turbulence. Oh, we have a good one today. Not that we don't every day or every pod drop, but wow. And I'm a little nervous. I think you heard me say that earlier.
And I don't want you to be nervous.
And I'll explain why I'm nervous. So my guest today, if you, I don't know, live in Northeast Pennsylvania, this name might sound familiar. Marisa Burke.
Ta-da.
Okay, so a little background. I like to always tell my audience my little background of my people. So Marisa Burke, and the reason why I'm nervous is because Marisa used to be the main anchor at WNEP Newswatch 16 when I was there as what we call like a cub reporter, like a younger reporter. And Marisa was very stern and strong in her conviction of journalism, and I'm a better journalist for it. And she intimidated the shit out of me. So now you know. Yes, we do curse on this podcast if you want. Yeah. I don't say the F word. I try not to. But I do sometimes just let it out. And I am so honored that you want to be on this podcast with me. And if people are wondering like, oh, well, this is going to be an interesting, conversation. And I wrote a little note down in my reporter notebook, and I wanted to ask you before we get into anything, because we obviously have a lot to cover, if there would be one word or a phrase that would describe your turbulence in your life, what would it be? I hate to put you on the spot.
Oh my, but you are putting me on the spot.
I am putting you on the spot.
One word.
Or phrase.
Courage. Courage. And that's actually, Raegan, how I sign my book. Courage always.
Oh.
Because, and we'll get into why I'm here. But I would say courage.
Okay. All right. So Marisa is, I looked up to her when I worked at Newswatch 16. I get a little teary because she brought somebody else who I used to work. Oh my gosh, I'm going to start crying. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. I'm just so moved. The other person is Dave Crisanda, and this is just coming out of nowhere. Oh, and the reason it just moves me is Dave Crisanda was my executive producer, and he would go through all my scripts, and he would correct things, and then Marisa would question all the time the story, but not in a way that was nasty, but in a way of like, I don't get it, or what's the point? And there's something about journalism that's, I kind of feel is getting lost, and I don't want to get into like a whole thing about it, but
it's worth mentioning,
it is
Raegan,
worth mentioning.
And that's why you're getting so emotional, because we are seeing a transformation of journalism in this country.
Yeah, we are.
Both on the local and national level. And all Dave and I were trying to do would be fantastic mentors and teachers to the upcoming journalists, and you were one of them.
Yeah. You guys are awesome.
Because we had great teachers,
Yeah.
in the
back in the day,
in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, we had some fantastic teachers who knew a thing or two about journalism. And I wish that, our goal was to pass those policies and standards, very high standards, onto the up and coming journalists. And in a way, I'm still doing that now, but but we're not seeing those standards are eroding, both on the local level and the national level. The integrity, the accuracy, the fairness. So.
Yeah, so I guess that's why.
So you know what? I can see why you're emotional.
Yeah,
because
and who would have known that I was the one that's going to start crying? I thought maybe you would, and it's not like that movie Broadcast News where like he's like trying to make the subject cry. Like no, I just full on just cried. I'm going to move my microphone and grab my bag and get a tissue because I don't know what I look like right now. I don't know if I'm an ugly crier or...
You're fine.
I do?
Yeah, you're fine.
TV ready?
Yeah, TV ready.
Oh,
but
Lord.
get the tissue and that
Oh, gosh, I'm going to dig down here and get my tissue. But yeah, this is real deal, and this is not getting cut from whatever. I can't believe I did this, you know? All right, anyway. I have a snot rag in here, and I don't want to blow my nose in the... Well, if that isn't an icebreaker, I don't know what is. But yeah, so that's what Marisa means to me. And that, in Dave Christanda, he's in the control room area, which is so fitting. Because as an executive producer, you're always in the control area.
He was in the control room.
He's watching everything. I wonder if I made him cry. Do you think? Probably not. Those EPs have no soul. Just kidding. All right, now let me get myself together. I don't know if I should blow my nose. This is a mess. Okay, so, all right. So now that we got that out of the way, so that's Marisa. So again, welcome to Unscripted Turbulence.
It's good to be here, Raegan. And it's so fantastic to see you again.
Thank you. And we were talking, you actually mentioned, like, when was the last time we saw each other? And I mean, I know I left Newswatch 16 in 2014, and that was like February, and I started at the Weather Channel in March 2014. So maybe we saw each other one other time after that, maybe for a reunion or a farewell party for a colleague at Newswatch, but I don't know. But it seems like no time has passed.
No, we pick up where we left off,
right?
Which is a sign of a good friendship.
I got the friendship vote. The friendship vote. Okay, so like, I don't know, like the 28-year-old me is freaking out right now. Okay, so, and if you're in New York City, just so you understand who Marisa is, she's like Bill Ritter at WABC, right? So like that was. Yeah. Well, she's not in it anymore, which then will catapult to that. What are you doing now?
I am now a group news director for a media management company called Coastal Television. We manage news and stations in multiple markets across the country in 4 different time zones, including Alaska. So I have to organize my day according to time zones, where the stations are. I start in the Eastern time zone and end up in Alaska time zone. So
do you ever sleep?
Yes, I do. I do. But they're very long days because there's a 4-hour difference between Eastern time zone and Alaska. So they'll be calling me at 8 o'clock my time when it's actually 4 o'clock their time. So they're still working.
Yeah, that's like crunch time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm still in news, Raegan. But now I'm supervising.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So where are you from? Let's start from the beginning. So where are you from?
So I was born and raised in a community in central Pennsylvania, Danville. That is probably, I think the borough is still maybe around 8,000 people. So it was, small town. Grew up with mom, dad, older brother, younger brother. House with a picket fence. Seriously, it had a picket fence. So just to give you the imagery there, very wholesome. And
graduated.
I won't say when, but went on to college and majored in broadcast journalism at Ithaca College. And
you went to Ithaca.
So Ithaca College.
No kidding.
And then landed my first television job about a couple of months after that in Roanoke, Virginia, southwestern Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. So that was like, that's where you make a lot of errors and mistakes and kind of figure things out.
I was there for a year and a half. And while I loved it there, but while I was there, my goal was to get back to the area that I was born and raised in, which was northeastern Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I did. In a year and a half, I was a cub reporter at that station in Virginia, worked my way up to main anchor in 18 months. And a year and a half later, I landed a job at Channel 16.
Yeah.
And
Channel
that's how
16
it happened.
was
And then
your
I was
second,
there for 31, 32 years.
And if you're not familiar with Newswatch 16 in Scranton, and yes, if you're thinking about The Office, Unfortunately, The Office was on NBC, and so WBRE was always, I always like about that, but it's fine. So Scranton is a medium market, and medium is like, I mean, you have to go through there then to get to the top market. So we're talking medium market like in 40, I think it was like 42, 47 something.
At that time, right.
And there's, what is it, 200 market? Oh, you would know. How many markets?
Just over 200 markets in the country.
Okay, so the smallest market is the largest number. So it's like 200, whatever would be the smallest market. Yes. Probably, it's like 9 cities and 1 TV station that you cover, like. And then, when you get to 40, like now we're talking like big, because then people go from 40 and they go to New York City, Philadelphia, LA.
We had journalists, as you know, go from Scranton to major markets, whether it was Philadelphia, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, New York. And they did very, very well.
Yeah.
But that was my home.
Right.
And I wanted to stay there. And I made a great career out of being there for so long.
Oh, it was wonderful. So we're all there having a great time. And now I think it might be time to talk about your story. So at the time, so I wrote it down a little bit, and you can correct me with my little notebook, my reporter notebook. It was November 2012. Is that correct? November 2012. I was at Newswatch 16 at the time, which I think is very interesting that we're having this conversation, because I can say as a firsthand witness to everything. I remember I think my cameraman, Dan the man I call him, we were out, I think we were all just kind of working that day. And, in a newsroom, things like spread like wildfire. And we got word, either it was a call from the desk, and the desk is like the assignment desk, and they're the ones that will tell you where to go for your story. They'll know where you are. They're like air traffic control. Like, they're really the heartbeat of the newsroom. So I think the desk may have called just to give us a heads up, because this news that was breaking, if somebody outside of Newswatch 16 family were to come and ask us, we should kind of be prepared with something. So we didn't know a lot, but we knew something was going on, and we knew something was going on with Marisa. Now, Marisa was our main anchor. Marisa was on the noon at that time, I think, also the 6 o'clock.
The noon newscast, and then again at 6.
Yeah, so like the news anchor. And from what I remember, on November in 2012, prosecutors filed charges in a sex abuse case relating to child pornography against your husband.
Yes.
It's like I'm living that all over again.
Well, the way I start my book, Just Checking Scores, is what happened that day. And I believe it was 2 days before Election Day.
Okay.
And I had just completed anchoring the noon news that day. And I was walking back to my desk. At that time, I never took my phone with me to the anchor desk. I just didn't do that. I always left my cell phone at my little cubicle. And I walked back to my desk, and I saw that I had a voicemail from the neighbor who lived across the street from us. Just outside the Scranton area. And I retrieved the voicemail, and it went something like, Marisa, it's Art from across the street. Don't know if you know this or not, but I'm looking out my window, and there are FBI agents, state police, local police. It looks like people from the prosecutor's office, and they have your house surrounded, and it looks like they're trying to break down your front door.
Oh, my God. Now, what you are, if you're watching, you'll see the reactions. If you're listening, you'll hear them. But I just want my listeners, our listeners and viewers to know that what Marisa is going to tell you, a lot of this information I don't even know. So we're all going to be learning this together and hearing it for the first time. And I've got some questions, but she also has a paper in front of her because for legal reasons. But I just want everybody to kind of know that I only know a surface level of this. So, okay. So you see.
So that was the voicemail that I received.
Right.
I knew that my husband was home working, so I immediately called him, and there was no answer. Tried again. There was no answer. And by this point in time, I said, "Wow, I've got to find out what's going on, because maybe the authorities have the wrong home.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on."
You literally had no idea. Like there was.
But in the back of my head, I did have a feeling that something may have happened with my husband again after what had happened 4 years before.
And what was that?
And that was 2008, where he was charged with underage drinking, supplying alcohol to minors in 2008.
Now, what's his job at this time?
I don't know, Raegan.
Like at that time?
Oh, at that time.
At that
time. Okay. At that time in 2012, he was working for an insurance company.
Oh, okay.
He was an educator, as I think you know, because at one time he was even a school board member on the Scranton School Board. He was a highly respected educator in northeastern Pennsylvania, and worked for Northeast Intermediate Unit, which they do specialized education for certain children in the area. So,
and in 2008, was he with the school district at that time?
And then in 2008, he was yes. At that time, he was still in education.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that 2008, he obviously had to leave.
So
education, or
well, yes.
Okay.
They made him resign, and after 2008, and the book kind of backtracks that. Right. I mean, I start off with the incident that happened in November of 2012, but in 2008, the difference between what happened in 2008 and 2012 is that the first incident in 2008 happened. That was very strange too. I had taken my two daughters to see my mother in Danville, and it was Mother's Day weekend, and we had returned. And 2 weeks later, I had received a phone call from Mark, and I was working. I was in the newsroom, and he called me and he said, "Honey, I'm in the DA's office. I think I'm going to be charged with furnishing alcohol to minors." And my heart stopped. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, the weekend that you went to see your mom with the girls, I had some guys over, college age, and these were guys in the neighborhood that he mentored, because they were going through college and universities, and they would seek out Mark's help with term papers, research papers, studies, things like that, which he was very good at. So he was like their mentor. So he had guys over. Now, granted, they were college age, but it turns out there was a 17-year-old who had snuck into the little gathering, got very drunk, got home in the wee hours of the morning, got drilled by his mother, and ratted out Mark, and said I was at their house drinking when in fact he had left our home and partied with some other high school kids all night long. But Mark took the fall for that. And it was that time where I really felt bad for Mark because of this happening. I had totally supported him regardless of the charge. He was charged with furnishing alcohol, and it was just one charge, but it ruined his career. And I felt terrible for him. I really felt sorry for him, and I continued to support him. I felt bad, really bad for him. And then soon after that, Raegan, it seemed like things were going okay for us, even though he had lost his career. He managed to find a job with an insurance company and selling a certain type of insurance, was doing very well, very successful with it. But over the next couple of years, I noticed that he was constantly looking at his phone and obsessed with what was on his phone and what was on the computer and what was on Facebook and social media. And around this time is when social media was really coming into existence.
And you were noticing in real time at that moment, like, oh, not looking back. Like, this is at that moment you're realizing he's really looking at his phone a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
So much so.
I mean, you're also a journalist, let's be honest. So
yes.
we kind of pick up on things too. So
yes. Mm-hmm. But this seemed very odd and bizarre to me that he was, it was getting to the point where I had to I basically said to the family when we sat down for dinner is no phones at the table. I want the phone, and if I see any phones at the dinner table, I'm going to take the phone and throw it out the front door.
Because your girls are watching Dad do this, and they're like,
girls are
well, we can
Dad
be on our phones.
And then the one day, my two daughters approached me and said, Mom, when we left Dad this morning, he was on his computer, but we went when he didn't even lift his head to say goodbye to us. He didn't even look our way. He was just he was looking at his phone, looking at his computer. And then they said, and when we returned from school, he was the same thing. He wouldn't even look at us and say hello. Really? So I'm thinking, wow, this is really strange.
Did you try to talk to him at that time about what did you say to him? What did he tell you?
We had conversations. I said, even the girls are picking up now that you're so focused and obsessed with your phone.
Did you ever ask, like, what are you looking at? Or
what are you looking at? What is it? And his response would be, Raegan, he was a big sports fanatic. He could spit out sports like anything. He knew scores, he knew highlights, he knew everything. He was a sports aficionado, and so his response to me was just checking scores,
which is the title of your book. I didn't know that is
that, and that was his answer. Just checking scores, sports related.
And you believed him
and I believed him because he
checked scores. He just knew sports.
Yes. So but that continued for several years, then leading up to 2012.
Okay, so bring us back to 2012.
So I'll bring you. So 2012. Before the 2 days before Election Day in November of 2012, there were some strange things going on with our property in Lackawanna County. It was weeks before Halloween, but yet for several nights in a row, our property was getting vandalized, whether it was draping tissue paper over all of our bushes or something. But and then it culminated with an incident where they threw eggs at our house. And I woke up the next morning and I said, Mark, what is going on? Nobody else is getting, and this is not Halloween. This is not a Halloween prank. We're weeks away from Halloween, and nobody else is getting their property is not getting vandalized. Why are we getting targeted? This seems very, very strange, and I got very angry. And I said, we've got to find out what's going on. Never heard, and then it kind of fell off, but then we were getting into November and 2 days before November. Looking back now, Raegan, I could never prove it, but I believe now that it was individuals that he was involved with, yeah.
Individuals he was involved with.
Yeah, having sexual conversations with.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because what had happened was Mark was charged federally with using a cell phone to sexually entice underage boys. And that was the charge. The feds got involved because it involved a communication device. So we believe that there were several victims, and it turned out that the plea agreement the plea agreement was just one. They got it to one charge, but he was still charged, and the grotesque thing about this whole incident, what happened, and him using his cell phone to sexually entice underage boys, was that we found out that these boys, some of them were actually classmates of my daughter. Mm-hmm.
How old was your daughter?
In the school district.
How old was your daughter at the time?
And she was a junior in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. And my other daughter was a year younger. She was in 10th grade. Very impressionable. And when this came out, of course, the school district knew what was going on because they were part of the investigation. So you had boys being the victims here, but you also had my daughters who were truly victims of this whole incident, that this nightmare that occurred in 2012.
So is it just? I mean, my mind's going like a mile a minute.
A mile a minute, yeah. It is mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, goodness.
And remember, I mean, the whole point of my book, my memoir on this, was I was still a very, I was a very visible, well-known personality, big anchor woman in northeastern and central Pennsylvania, trying to save face, but at the same time, knowing full well that we had to report the story, and the story was huge for two reasons. A, he was a well-known educator, former Scranton School Board member, and B, who was he married to?
Yep. The most public figure in
the most public
Pennsylvania.
figure. In fact, one of my notes here, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but the way the news started the one night, and it was something
was
about
it with Scott Schaefer?
Yeah, it was something that, I think that my partner had said, good evening, we have some disturbing news to tell you, but in all fairness, we must. Yeah. And he proceeded to say, former school board member and well-known educator in the area, Mark Candell, has been charged with child sex crimes, and he is the husband of Newswatch 16's Marisa Burke.
How did you feel about that?
What could I do? It was so. It puts you in a comatose state almost. Surreal. I was numb. I was heartbroken. I was in despair for the girls. And to think about the embarrassment and humiliation. I mean, Raegan, you know that we reported on cases like this every single day.
Oh, yeah. We leaned into them, too, because, it's...
Exactly. So here I am on the other side now, because my husband has been charged with a pretty serious crime. I mean, at first, they were calling it child sex crimes.
Right.
I think child pornography was thrown in there somewhere. Yeah. Now, as it turned out, again, what it turned out to be was he used a communications device to sexually entice underage boys.
This was all happening as you were married to him in your house.
Right.
But he was just checking score?
He was just checking score and doing very well, living a double life.
Now, so when I remember you leaving and then you didn't come back to work for a really, really long time,
mm-hmm.
right? So take me through, so you leave to go home to see what the heck is going on at your house.
Mm-hmm.
And what your neighbor said was true. All sorts of officials were there.
What my neighbor said was true. I was excused from work that day. I believe I walked into our news director's office and said, something is going on in my neighborhood. I didn't give a lot of detail.
Okay.
But I said, I think something's going on in our neighborhood. And I think it would be best if I left for a while and to see what was going on. And he gave me that day off, the rest of the day off. But that was the last that anybody saw of me for a while at the station. I remember what the ride home was like that day.
Yeah, take me through.
Terrifying. I could feel my heart beating out of my chest, and I'm thinking, is this something more after what had happened in 2008? Was there still communication? Was there still what is he doing with these underagers? What is going on? Well, I pulled into the driveway, and Mark was there.
Oh my gosh!
And I said, "What in the world?" Oh, and all the authorities were gone already. They were gone. I think what they knew, they came in. It was a raid. It was a raid at my home, and they came in and they knew what they were after. They were after computers, cell phones, cameras, that sort of thing. Which they did confiscate some things, but as soon as I talked to Mark, I said, "What happened? What is going on? What is going on now? You need to be open with me. You need to be honest and forthright with everything." And he said, "Well, they seem to think that I'm having communications with underage boys." And I said, "Are you? Are you?" And we were just going back and forth that day. And then it was getting toward the end of school, so the girls were coming in.
And at that point, did they know anything?
At that point, they didn't know anything.
Okay.
But it was that night in our kitchen, and the girls were out of the room in another part of the house, and I said, Mark, you got to level with me. You have got to level with me. What is going on? And that's when he said, I think I'm in trouble because I've been having communications with underage boys. And that was all he said. And I said, wait a minute. You knew you were having communications, and then he said they were sexual conversations with underage boys. And I said, and you knew this would be against the law, but you did it anyway. And he looked at me and he started tearing up and he said, yes. And that was the epiphany. And that part is in my book too, Raegan, that the epiphany was, okay, in 2008, I loved you. I continued to love you and support you and feel sorry for you and pity you. But I am done. And I actually did the washing of the hands gesture. And I said, this time you are on your own because I cannot go through another ordeal like I did in 2008.
How do you pick up the pieces at that point? I mean, you're staring at your husband who had been doing this behind your back. I mean, you must have felt, I know I would feel stupid and kind of, not to say that you felt stupid, I think I would feel stupid and just lied to. And how did I not see? And did any of that go through your mind? Like, how did I not see this?
You know what? Looking back, Raegan, and I think this falls into the theme of your podcast, but I think there were warning signs there. But remember, I was living the perfect life. Okay, I was the big head honcho at the TV station and making 6-figure salary and 2 beautiful girls, and they were doing well and everything was so great, and I was living in a beautiful home right outside Scranton, and I didn't want anything to ruin it. But looking back, and this is all in the book too, that the warning signs. Now looking back, I think there were warning signs. But I chose to look the other way, I think.
But you didn't know.
Because I didn't want my beautiful life ruined in any way.
But you didn't know he was doing this.
No.
That's the one you didn't, that.
But there were warning signs, like leading up to his arrest in 2012. He was coming to bed, and this is also in the book. Mm-hmm. He was coming to bed wee hours of the morning. There were a few times where it just didn't make sense. He would go to the gym and work out when he really didn't need to, because we had a full-fledged gym in our basement. Uh-huh. But he found excuses to leave the house. And then, of course, not to mention the thousands of hours probably that he was looking at his phone and just so absorbed in social media and his computer and that sort of thing.
Oh my gosh. So where did you go when you left? Because I remember you weren't on TV for a while. What did you do?
For a while. I don't think it was as long. They actually gave me quite a leave of absence when all this happened in 2008. In many ways, I think, looking back, I think 2008 was a lot more traumatic because, remember, he was charged with furnishing alcohol to minors, but I was still, my heart was still with him. We had a partnership. We had a bond. I still loved him. I believed him. But by 2012, I realized, wow, I was lied to, betrayed, and really bamboozled because he was leading such a secretive double life that he was sexually attracted to underage boys.
I don't know if I'm going to keep this question in the podcast, but I'm curious. And you don't have to answer and you don't have to go into any detail, but, signs you look back on. Was there any intimacy?
There was intimacy, Raegan, in the beginning of our marriage, and through the early years of when our daughters were young. But when they started hitting middle school, high school, no, the intimacy completely dropped off. Completely. Mm-hmm.
Oh my, Marisa, I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this. And how long did you stay with him after this?
In 2012, when I basically said, you are on your own. Yeah. That was it. A few months after that, Raegan, and I don't know if you remember, but I had filed for divorce.
Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And the big reason I had filed for divorce, the biggest reason, of course, was what had happened and his arrest and how his true self came to be. But the other reason was to reinforce to my employer, the television station, that I'm serious now about cutting ties with this monster. I believe they needed to hear that. They needed to witness that. And by filing for divorce, that reinforced my intentions of just cutting ties with this individual. I can't say enough about our former employer, and I spell that out in the book very clearly. I thought for sure after 2008 and the embarrassment and humiliation that I had put the station in then, granted, it was on a different scale than what had happened in 2012, but still, looking back, I thought, wow, they, in a way, I think they should have gotten rid of me because I was casting a bad shadow on the station. I mean, I knew it was all Mark's doing, that I had nothing to do with it, but still, it was, as you know, we worked for a television station, a dominant number one, because we saw our viewers like family, and our viewers saw us as family. We had that bond with our viewers, and that's what made us so successful. Well, when you have something like this that comes along and compromises that relationship, that special relationship that you have with your viewers, that's why I thought for sure. I thought any day now, I'm gonna hear from the television station that they're gonna let me go, but they did not. They had faith in me. They believed me that I had nothing to do with what he was accused of. And they stuck with me. They stuck with me through thick and thin. They really did. So, I mean, the gratitude that I have for our former employer is I will never, ever, ever say a bad word about that station, because they were very, they stuck by me. They did. When they had every opportunity to say, you know what, we can't deal with this, Marisa. You've got to go.
But the viewers loved you too, and like you said, the family part. Of course, people were people were shocked. Of course, you're going to have some people who are like, how did she not know? Or
right. And I did get that.
Like what, but overall, overarching, the viewers cared about you. You basically watched their children grow up and them grow up. You were part of the fabric of Northeastern Pennsylvania. So I agree that the company did the right thing by keeping you, because you were such a cornerstone in the community. And you also showed you can get through the hard shit of life. It's just really unfortunate you were so public at that point in your life. But the viewers, I mean, what was that like to hear from viewers?
I would say 98% of our viewers had sympathy and pity for me during 2008 and again in 2012. But I had heard some people saying, how did she not know? And that was the question I heard, sometimes. And when I did my book tour a couple years ago, I mean, there were people who said, Marisa, we've got to ask you this. How did you not know that your husband was doing this? And I said, no, remember, look at all the people that we have reported, national figures, okay? And you know who I'm talking about, but national figures.
This is a good point to make, okay, Marisa Burke.
Who turned out they were leading a double life. Okay, same thing. When you are really good at leading a double life, you think you always have in the back of your mind, I'm going to get away with this. I'm going to get away with this. I'm going to get away with this. And part of that whole thing, you've got the motivation for leading, whatever that is, leading a double life, but your motivation is also hiding it very well. And he was a master at hiding it. He was, and remember, and again, I go into detail in the book how much he was loved in the community and his personality. And Raegan, he had one of the best senses of humor. I think And I still say he had the best sense of humor, I think, of any person I have ever met in my lifetime. Okay? And when we would go to social gatherings, especially when he was on the Scranton School Board, and we were out in the community quite a bit. Everybody would gravitate to Mark because he had that magnetic personality and his sense of humor.
Just that charisma, that light in the room everybody's got to come to. Yeah.
Absolutely. His personality. I mean, that's why I fell in love with him. Back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s.
But he was that type of person. I mean, did he come across as some sinister guy wanting to, sexually entice underage boys? Of course not. He hit it very well. A big part of his profession when he was an educator was teaching teachers how to teach. I mean, that's what he did. He went all over northeastern Pennsylvania, school districts all over the area, and basically teaching teachers how to teach. The teachers loved him. When they had in-service days with Dr. Mark Gandel, they loved him.
I never met him, but I had heard through the grapevine he was awesome.
Yes.
Which is just...
Yes.
For all of this...
Yes.
It's like a double take. Like, what?
Yes.
So where is he now? How did that all play out on his end?
He ended up entering a guilty plea. Again, one charge of using a communications device to sexually entice and one underage boys. Now, the federal prosecutors were absolutely convinced that there was more than one victim, and there were. There were more than one boy, but with plea agreements, this is what you get to.
Right.
So, so he entered a guilty plea, and he was sentenced to 14 and a half years in the federal system. He was a federal inmate for 14 and a half years.
He served all 14?
He served all 14. He is now out.
He's out?
He's out.
Where is he? Do you know?
And part of the sentence, Raegan, is he has lifetime supervision. I mean, especially in the federal system, they take this kind of stuff very seriously. So in other words, the feds could pop in on him at any moment and say, okay, open up your laptop. We're going through it.
Oh, my God.
For the rest of his days.
I mean, I understand why.
Yes. And he's also labeled a child sex predator also.
So he's on the Megan's Law registry?
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, just to think his life, like oh my God, talk about a fall from grace, right?
Oh, yeah, big time. Big time.
So is he in Northeast Pennsylvania? I mean, I don't want to dig too deep into this. I'm not going to ask you like the street he's living on.
You know what?
Do you keep in touch?
I'm friends with the federal prosecutor.
I thought you were going to say, "Oh, I'm friends with him." I was like,
no.
Wow, this has taken a different turn.
No. I have not spoken to him. My daughters have not spoken to him.
I was going to ask you about
the federal prosecutors has kept me in the loop, and we have turned out to be good friends. Good friends. As a matter of fact, she actually encouraged me to write the book.
Really?
Yeah, she did. I remember the one day I was in her office, and this was after everything that happened, and she just said, Marisa, I just want to make sure that you're okay, and more so your daughters are okay, and because she knew I was still working, and I said, I guess I am, and I hope my girls are. I mean, we all went to therapy.
I was going to say.
Yeah, we all went to therapy. And
together or separate or all?
Sometimes together, sometimes separate. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But she just wanted to make sure that we could hopefully put this nightmare behind us as much as we could.
Right.
And I said, I told her, I said, I know I'm going to be scarred for life after this. My life will never be the same. And it wasn't. I mean, I looked at my life was, wow, I'm going to retire with this man. We're going to maybe move someplace else in the country, maybe a warmer climate, and enjoy our older years. And I had dreams of being with this man for the rest of my days. Well, all that, blew up.
In a very big public way,
in
too.
a very big public way, yeah. And so, and for a long time, Raegan, and this is part of the reason I wrote the book, was, I was bitter, and I don't know if you had picked that up before you had left the television
I will say
station
you were
where
angry.
we both worked.
You were angry.
But I was angry. I was angry. I was bitter.
Because this is after you came back.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I do want to ask you,
Yeah.
maybe you can answer this before you get into what you're about to talk to, because I think it goes hand in hand. What was it like coming back on the desk after all of that?
Well,
because I mean, as a TV person, you think about, obviously you're so public,
right? And
now something happened. Now you got to come back and face everybody.
Well, first of all, remember that the justice system goes rather slowly. So, there was a time period in between when he was arrested by the feds. This is 2012. And court case, and then preliminary hearing, and then another hearing, and then a guilty plea, and then sentencing. There could be as much as 9 to 10 months in a span.
And you were off air that time.
But I was not. No, I was not off the air that long in
not
2012.
Not that long, but in the beginning, I knew you were.
No, but remember, during that span, we had to run stories about him when he was going to be in court to enter his guilty plea, and then when he was sentenced. And I was on the air for that. And I specifically remember sitting next to my co-anchor when he would be reading the story. And remember, Raegan, if I was also producing the news at that time. So I had to be a choreographer and assign my co-anchor to read the story about Mark, because it would totally be awkward if I read the story, of course.
All right.
But I knew that when my partner was on camera reading the story about Mark, and I would have to sit there and listen, and I knew that there were some cameras, studio cameras on me, and I knew that there were a whole bunch of people in the control room looking at that camera and not the other camera, looking to see what my reaction was going to be.
So for somebody listening, maybe somebody would want to know why, and this is a journalism question too, but why not you? Why didn't you read the story?
Because I think it would just be super awkward. I mean, by that time, most of our viewers in northeastern and central Pennsylvania knew what was going on, knew the relationship, and
it's a conflict of interest too.
Right. It was just the awkwardness, and and that it was just so bizarre. But in doing research for my book, there was never a case like this in the country where there was a spouse of a very well-known on-air personality and dealing with this the way I had to deal with it, and being on air, and where my partner's reading stories about the misdeeds of my husband, and I'm sitting 2 feet away from my partner on the set.
Now talk about the anger.
Well, like I said, I don't know if you were still there, and I don't know if you had picked it up.
I did.
But I
couldn't blame you, by the way.
Yeah,
just so you know that. I couldn't blame you.
I was angry at the world. I was just so bitter. I was so down. The despair. I lost trust in everybody. I don't know. I was just really. I thought, wow, and I was just so, my every day, how could this happen to me? I would ask that question every day. How could this happen to me? How could this happen to my girls? we were so innocent. We were such a great family. We loved being together. We loved going on vacations together. And that was all gone now. I mean, that our family unit he blew up everything. And for the longest time, I was just, I had a bad attitude. I mean, you knew it. Everybody picked up on it in the newsroom. It was just.
We also knew, though, Marisa, it wasn't a thing we were like, oh God. It was more like I think collectively, we knew where it was coming from.
Yeah.
Like we felt bad, but nobody's going to talk to. I mean, I'm sure some colleagues talked to you, but I was out in the Pocono newsroom at the time, so I didn't get a chance to kind of come over to you and say hey or whatever. But I know for me, a lot of us felt bad. Like, really, Mark? Like, really? That's what you're going to do to like Marisa, who's basically leading the charge of the newsroom. It was shitty. It was really awful. And I think that a lot of us, looking back, I remember it was aggressive. You were aggressive, but that wasn't you for everything you were going through. Again, publicly, like people can say what they want and they can hear this story and they can make their decisions and make their opinions, whatever. But unless you are sitting on an anchor desk for 30 plus years.
30 plus years,
and everybody in the community knows you. And even before social media, like really before the TikToks and everything, like unless they are walking in your shoes, they have no idea what that experience was like.
Exactly. I was a public figure and the embarrassment and humiliation was off the charts.
And you could have just ran away, by the way. You could have never come back to Newswatch 16. You could have said, you know what, I'm done.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot more people would have done that.
Yeah.
But
well, all my close friends, and granted, when all this happened, my circle of friends all of a sudden got a lot smaller too. There was a time where we were shunned, especially in our neighborhood, ostracized, just almost like we had a disease,
and
that they didn't want to catch. They ignored us. Even the girls. The girls to a certain extent, but more so. I mean, more so me. They were. It's like, we can't be associated with her, and she has ties to this monster and what he did. But it was just horrible. The humiliation, Raegan. I will never, ever, ever forget. I mean, remember, I was on the top of the mountain with my career, with my family, with my home, and it just came crashing down. And the personal trauma that I endured became so very public because I was a public figure.
How did you get through it?
Well, and I think this I think applies to the purpose of your podcast is, I knew that I was in such depths of despair, and I came to realize, I can't live the rest of my life feeling like this. So I thought, how could I change this suffering and despair into defiance and strength? And that was when I thought, wow, if I could empower others and give them hope and try to give a message that, if I overcame this horrible nightmare, maybe they can too. And I thought, I should write a book. And that's how it came to be. And I talked to my girls about it, and because I wanted them to know, how do you feel about Mom possibly writing a book about this whole thing? And there are in the book there are stories within the stories as well, and they were both on board. They were 100% behind me, and they said, "Mom, go for it." And, as you know, in October of 2016, I was fortunate that the company came along and said, "Hey, we're offering a buyout to several people in the station," and many of us had been there for a long, long time. And I jumped at the chance.
That's the sign.
That was the sign, because I thought, wow, you're giving me the opportunity, and and it was very, walking out of the building. I mean, they gave me a good severance. They really gave me a good severance, and I thought, wow, I can spend this time and work on my book, start writing it, and I did, and I started. With lined paper and actually writing.
Oh, like an old school journalist would.
And that's how I started writing the book.
It must have been so therapeutic.
And it was. And I thought, wow, this is a way that I could channel all those bad emotions into defiance and strength, and maybe I can empower others out there who may find themselves in the same kind of betrayal situation and somebody living a double life. And Raegan, I will tell you this, after the book was published and I went on my book tour, and it became an episode of on Investigative Discovery, and I received so many messages from people. Not people saying, gosh, I loved the book, I couldn't put it down. A lot of people said I couldn't put it down. But there were many, many people who reached out to me and said, I was kind of in a similar situation. And, I get messages to this day. I mean, I'm trying to think when the book came out. I think it was early 22. And to this day, I'm getting messages every week from somebody who said, I just read your book. Can I tell you a little bit about my story?
So I did not get your book, and I'm glad I didn't, because I wanted to hear you tell me I'm going to get this book, though, because
I have a copy for you.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
yes.
I do.
All right. And the book's title again?
Just Checking Scores.
Okay. And I'm glad I didn't, because I really, there's something special about hearing it from you. I didn't want to come in here and say like, oh, about this page and this, sometimes you'll have like hosts do that. And it's like, oh, it's like, and then listeners like just along for the ride. Like, I'm finding out a lot of stuff that I did not know. But this book must have also been really therapeutic for your daughters, because they don't have to, like, I don't know if it comes up a lot in their conversations, but now that there's a book out there, do they feel kind of a relief? Obviously happy that you were able to write everything, but what are they getting out of it too, in terms of emotional, mental, any closure, anything?
I think there is.
And how are they today?
I think the book turned out to be some closure for the three of us. But it has taken its toll. And I will share this, that with my older daughter, she has traveled all over the world. I think she's almost up to 40 countries that she has visited. But ever since this happened, she's been wanting to go, to leave, to go. She never in
like
one place. Running, exactly. My other daughter, and this is also in the book, took a while to find who she is sexually. And there has been a separation between my second child and myself. And I believe that in that particular instance, and again, it's in the book, that she actually testified at her father's sentencing. And I I wanted to think after that, you know, she was strong enough to get through it. But I think over time, it just kind of manifested, and it was in her, and I think that has affected a lot of her emotions, and so there is unfortunately a disconnect between me and my second child.
There's a lot of trauma.
A lot of trauma. Yeah, I'm hoping that I have given them a lot of space, mm-hmm. and I'm hoping that maybe they'll come around and reconnect some sort of relationship down the road, but there's no guarantee. I think a lot of damage was done, and we just started seeing that, you know, in the past 5-10 years. Yeah.
As a parent, I mean, that just after everything you've been through, and then, you know, and now this.
But yeah. So was there damage done by, you know, with the three of us? Yes, there was. And like I said, the scars will be there, if not forever, for a very long time. I'm still, in a way, I'm getting better at it. I mean, there are a lot of days where I'll get through the day and not think of him and what he did and how he basically destroyed our family. And I think it will get better with time, but you know, I'm in my mid-60s now, and you know, now I realize, you know, most of my life is behind me.
Oh, geez.
But you know, it's true. It's reality. You know, life, I can't complain about my life right now. I mean, again, I have a very good job, a very good position. I'm still in news. And retirement is within eyesight now, which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after everything you've told me, let's talk about hopes and dreams. Let's talk about the next step. I think Newswatch 16 taught me that. The next step, when the package we do, at the end of the package, you always want to do the next step. Like, what's next? What is next?
I thought about writing another book.
Oh.
About our days at the television station and what it was like to be in local news. I thought about writing another book.
I think that would be phenomenal. I have a couple of people who could talk about it and beyond here, but I think that
I have so many stories and behind the scenes stories and I you know, very amusing anecdotes and things like that, and so I have thought about it, but right now I have no time because of the job I'm in and overseeing stations in four different time zones.
When things aren't working in Alaska, you get
exactly
the call.
Exactly. Yeah.
So another book, if you that's on the horizon.
Maybe after retirement. Okay. And I'm hoping to retire in just a few more years. Yeah.
And then, I mean, where do you live now? Are you?
Well, right now I'm on the East Coast.
Right.
And I'm staying with a very dear friend, mm-hmm. as you know. Mm-hmm. And but in 2017, I moved to Colorado and settled in Colorado Springs, which I loved, and I had family out there.
Yeah.
And my mom had moved out too. And excuse me. And I loved it. I fell in love with Colorado. So I will be going out there again. Yeah, I will be heading out there again.
There's something so magical about the West. I do love Colorado as well. I also very much like California. They're just, you know what, it's so different than what we are used to in the East.
Yes.
And I'm not saying the left coast is the best coast, but I'm just saying.
Yes.
I'm still licking my wounds from the Phillies losing to the LA Dodgers, but that's, and of course, when everybody listens to this, that game will not be a problem or an issue anymore, but I'm fresh off a loss, but whatever. Anyway.
No, so I will be going back to college. I mean, I still have. In fact, I have a lot of my belongings are still in Colorado.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I will be going back.
You're like a woman of the world.
Yes. Yeah. I love. We're traveling everywhere now. Gosh, my bucket list is so long, but my goal is to plant my 2 feet on all 7 continents before I die, and I'm almost there.
Oh, well,
almost there.
Well, if you want to go to the Serengeti, I'll go with you. Because Pilot does not want anything to do with having to get shots and bugs and heat or whatever. So
I've been to Africa, but not that part of Africa, and I do want to do that part of Africa. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's see what time. We're not too bad, huh? Okay. We could wrap it up. I just want to tell you how just impressed I am and how of you and awe-inspired for everything you went through. Again, I don't know if Terry McTierson is going to tear up again, but you really you impacted my life at an early age. I was a spry age. Let me think, 29, 30, something,
right?
Whatever,
right.
But in my career, I look up to this woman who has been a staple on the anchor desk. Again, terrifying me. I was very nervous again coming into this interview because you think about oh my gosh, she was my boss at one point. Well,
it was an impressionable time for you because you were still learning a lot. But it was you were learning so much from people like myself.
Yes.
And you knew that, gosh, I've got to learn this if I'm going to go bigger and better.
And I want to prove myself.
Which is what you did.
Thank you.
And when, gosh, I mean, I still use your resume reel to show the upcoming multimedia journalists on how to do stand-ups and how to walk and talk and how to show and how to demonstrate. Oh. I still use your resume reel for all of our new multimedia journalists.
I remember you asking me.
I asked you for it, and you sent it to me, and because there was nobody, Raegan, there was nobody better. Nobody better.
Stop it.
Mm-mm.
I mean, those are the moments where it's like, oh my God.
Nope. That is, and I will say that with 100% honesty, that there was nobody better. And so did it surprise us that you landed then finally, you made the number one market. Yeah. You landed in the number one market. And does that surprise any of us? No.
Wow. Well, thank you. Because you really led the way for me.
Well, thank you. I think it's great. I think what you're doing with the podcast and the themes of overcoming challenges and being courageous. This is, people need to hear more of this.
Yeah, and from somebody had recently said oh, you should get B-list celebrities or celebrities talk to. Listen, if it happens, it does. But I feel like there's just so much more of a takeaway when you hear about it from someone yes, are you a celebrity in your own right? Yes, Northeast Pennsylvania. Yes. But
nobody will have a story like mine, though.
No, they won't. And it resonates, right, with people. And people can relate to it as opposed to, some maybe bigger personalities out there you just can't. I love Jennifer Aniston. And if you're watching or listening, awesome. But there's certain things that she and I we're not going to be able to relate to. Now, maybe she's going to sit in my chair one day. I don't know. But I just like to talk to people who you can even reach out to. I'm sure there are going to be people here or listening, watching that are going to reach out to you. And you know what? You're going to respond.
Absolutely.
It's not a PR agency responding on your behalf. So there is something collective about that. To all of us getting together in a shared experience when shit hits the fan, basically.
But can I just mention, in the time that we have left,
Yes.
we mentioned about the book. The book is just checking scores. It's gotten great reviews on Amazon. I'm not sure you could still purchase it through Amazon. I'm not sure if it's still in Barnes & Noble yet. It was for a while when it first was released, when it was first published. And I think Walmart, you could also go on Walmart and online and order it. But it wasn't too long after that Investigative Discovery had reached out, done an episode, because at that time they were doing season 7 of Who the Bleep Did I Marry? And that's the name of the series.
Wow.
And I think I'm in season 7. It's either episode 2 or 3, but you can watch that now on HBO Max. You can see, if you have HBO Max, you can see that episode on HBO Max. And if I can kind of reveal, we had a screenwriter out of Canada spend almost a year writing a full-fledged treatment from my book, in hopes that we develop something into maybe a mini series for maybe a streaming platform, where we've been talking to some folks in Los Angeles about it. And so fingers crossed. So maybe somebody will hear this and think, wow, but the treatment is all ready to go. And we, yeah. So that would be the ultimate. And, we're thinking about actors who could play me and Mark.
Who would you want? Who would you want to play you?
I have no idea who I would want, but I would love for Jude Law to play Mark.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So Jude Law, you're listening.
Jude Law, if you are listening, yeah, I would love for Jude. I think he'd be phenomenal. I think he'd be a phenomenal Mark.
Well, I like this. You speak it to the universe. You get it out there. You never know.
Out there. You never know.
You never know.
I mean, here we are in New York.
Right.
So,
and talking about the courage that you had to go through, get through everything, and you're still standing.
Hopefully I'm still standing. Yes.
Yeah. If I don't know a better story of I'm still standing.
Yeah.
It was, wow. All right. Well, I think we are done. And we are just going to wrap it up for now.
It was a pleasure, Raegan. It's so great being in your presence again. Oh. And you just light up the room.
Oh, stop.
No, you do.
Thank you.
You haven't changed at all. Gosh.
Thank you for that, because you never know. When you get up in rank, and then all of a sudden, I get, but you know what? I like to always remember where I came from, return to where my roots are, water them here and there. You get humbled along the way, but that's part of the process. Yes. But I hope that when people watch and listen to this episode, that they will walk away knowing that the courage that you had through the entire journey, that it exists and they could have it too. So,
yep.
All right.
You just have to channel your despair and suffering into something good, strength and defiance. I mean, and I just want to say, the book was not an act of revenge, because it's not about him. My book is my memoir. It's my story. It's a story of redemption and reckoning for me. And I'm glad I did what I did. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And we will end it there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Bye, friends. You're awesome. Let's see here. Take what lands, leave what doesn't, and keep moving forward. Follow wherever you're listening, and if you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know.